and if she was really worth for him to risk his life for her. She then stated that the jade phosphorus flower of 7 absolutes would be frozen by using his absolute ice domain, and even the poison would be weakened against it. She ordered him to go and die for Dong'er. He thanked her and headed towards the forest. He complimented Chur that she was one of the kindest people to him after his mother, and whether he would die or come back from that forest, he was certain that he and Chur were best friends. She screamingly called him idiot and stupid and punched on the stem of the tree that tore it up into 2 pieces. She still could not understand that why she was being such a fool, and if he was real. He held her hand, Yai willing to give his life to that woman. Yu Hao entered the forest with the protective ring around him. He was feeling sorry for Chur. He liked her too, but he owed Dong'er way too much and he could not live without her. That's why he had to take the risk alone. He had finally found a way, and he was the one who was impulsive about that. All he had thought about was to get the herb some way or another and considered that it was a form of his responsibility. According to his uncle Nutian's letter, Dong'er's disease would only be triggered when she would be 20 years old, and there were still 3 years for that. If he had asked Shrek Academy, he would have definitely gotten help. But that was his last chance, and his soul cannon was also fully charged. As he was about to pull the trigger, Chur came running towards him and asked him to stop right there. He asked that why was she following him. She responded that she was not half-hearted as he thought, and if she had decided to accompany him, then she would do whatever she could to achieve that. He held her hand and thanked her again. He made a ball of absolute ice and was about to try and check if it was really the plant's weakness. The ice blast was one of the strongest ice attribute. As he threw the ball, there was a huge blast, but still the plant had not budged. In the next scene, Snow Empress had appeared in front of them and started to roam around the plants. Yu Hao screamed at her not to go around as it was filled with poison, but then he realized she was not afraid of poison. As she flew over the plants, the flowers were closing and the poisonous mist was also slowly disappearing. The daydream had also appeared, covered in blanket, and informed Yu Hao that absolute ice was the best counter for all types of poison in the world. He responded that why wasn't he informed about that before? He went towards Chur, and they both had a conversation about how absolute ice was the best counterpoison, and because of that reason, he wondered that his uncle was right to ask him doing that work alone. They both continued their journey and had finally passed through the poisonous mist. There was a valley in front of them that was also marked on the map. The fog in their region was so thick that they were not able to see what was ahead. Yu Hao felt lucky that there were only plant-type soul beasts in that region. He saw that there was something over the fog in the air. It seemed like a giant black snake was on top of their head. Yu Hao was shocked to see a snake there, because there was nothing found in his spiritual detection. They got trapped in between the creepers and got curious if it was also a plant-type soul beast. He asked Chur to be careful as those veins seemed to be poisonous. He was told to handle one side and she would take care of the rest. Yu Hao saw her venting out her anger on the veins that she had kept during the time in poisonous mist. They both finally got out of it. They were trying to be more careful from then, as they had no idea what was awaiting for them at the top. It could be an illusionary poison, jade phosphorus that was a poisonous mist, or even the poisonous veins. Each of them could be fatal, and that core area was surrounded by such scary things. They reached to a spot where they both got mesmerized and were not able to believe their eyes. They had arrived in front of a lake that looked like a fantasy word in a book. They were not expecting it to be like that at all. Chur considered that place like a mini heaven, and had bet that there was no other place like that in the entire Duluo continent for growing plant-type soul beasts than there. The vital energy there was also incredible, and was even comparable to the frozen jade essence bed in the Clear Sky clan. The color of the lake was a mix of blue and red. It was surrounded by beautiful flowers and trees and butterflies all around it. Chur asked Yu Hao to look at the map and see if that place looked like the place they needed to go. He started to compare the place with the map. He got disappointment on his face, saying that his uncle's letter could not help them with that. She queried if there was any other way. He told her about the message his uncle had left him with when he would arrive at that place. His message to him was to search for the book before start searching for the immortal herb. They saw a giant pretty pink flower near the lake. She asked him if that big flower was the thing he was looking for. He inquired further if she knew that flower's name. She responded with a no. She had never seen a flower like that in the entire Stardow. But she had a feeling that the flower contained more vital energy than the two-colored lake, and was sure that plants like it must have definitely evolved into a plant-type soul beast by then. She mentioned to him that there was no need for them to rush, and asked if he was going to find the book first. He wondered if there was really a book, and even if there was, then it might have long been decomposed. She suggested that she would go and see. He stopped her, asking her to protect him from the rear and not to worry about him as he would be careful. He activated his thrusting soul guide, the blizzard domain that was a dark gold terror claw. He demanded that he would be safe from that and would be out from danger. The plant-type soul beasts were bound to nature, As long as he had his blizzard domain, he was safe. Even if something unexpected would happen, he planned to fly back. In that moment, he detected a fragrance and thought he was poisoned. He speculated if there was poison hidden within the air, but the aroma seemed non-toxic and harmless to him. He attacked the flower, but the flower had not budged even a slightest. It then started to grow even bigger with fire over it and started to talk to them. It said to that they were lucky to have come that far, and warned if they would try to take it from there, then they should not blame it for being rude. Yu Hao was in a state of shock that a flower was communicating with them. Chuer urged him to move from there and told him that he could die as it was 100,000 years old plant-type soul beast. She further told him that it could speak like a human, and as far as she remembered correctly, it was comparable to the red three-headed demonic lion they had met before. It was an existence even comparable to Elder Zhuan. No matter how confident they both were, they were not capable of defeating a 100,000-year soul beast. Yu Hao asked her to get the flying soul guide ready and be prepared to run at any time. The flower responded that it was not a 100,000-year soul beast. By listening to its tone, Yu Hao assumed it to be a female's voice. He greeted it by calling it a senior, and informed it that they had found that place by accident. He asked to be forgiven as they had not meant to offend it. He wondered if he would speak respectfully, then it might avoid any unnecessary things. The flower forgave them, and the pressure from them finally went off. They tried to get some information from her as they saw she was not holding any intentions to kill them. He questioned the flower if she knew where that place was. She responded that they were at the Yin-Yang Well, and it was one of the 3 places that had abundant vital energy in the continent. She further said that they were lucky that the person they had met was her, and if it was a one with grumpy nature, they would have been killed immediately and become their fertilizer. No human was able to reach that far inside, and she was almost bored to death. She was glad someone had finally come and asked them to talk to her, and if she was in a good mood, she might even give them a present. It seemed like that the soul beast was not that aggressive to begin with, and she looked quite friendly. Yu Hao had not learned her name yet and asked how he should call her. She was informed by a person that she was an immoral herb known as diaphanous silk immortal. She assumed that it was her name and found it very cool and asked them to call her that. Yu Hao agreed with her that she had an awesome name. He speculated that she was an immortal herb that was evolved into a soul beast. He addressed her by calling her a senior and posed a question to her that why she said that she was not a 100,000-year soul beast. She told them that it was because she had not lived that long yet, and she did not know how long she had lived. By the looks it seemed she was alive from 10,000 years. Chuer replied that it was impossible, and she could not speak or develop her own consciousness if she weren't a 100,000-year plant soul beast, but she was even talking to them. The flower explained to her that it was a yin-yang well, and all the plants that had grown around had 10 days equivalent of outside by staying 1 day inside. So even though she was only 10,000 years old, she had a cultivation equal to 100,000 years. In other words, the plant-type soul beasts were way more powerful than what they had originally imagined, and if they had run into a soul beast with a bad temper, they would have been dead. The flower asked them why were they standing so silently, and if they won't talk to her, she would not be able to protect them. Yu Hao responded that the place belonged to Senior Silk Immortal, and without her, they would have been dead. But it did not matter. If he had to, he would fight her. He apologized her for disappointing her. They could have talked a lot if they had come there without a purpose, but at that time, they had a purpose. He also asked her about the book his uncle told him to find. She got shocked and said that maybe they were sent there by that person, and started asking how he was doing, and it had been a long time since she saw him. Yu Hao got confused who she was talking about, Dong'er's father or his uncle Niu Tian. He replied that he was well and requested information about the book. She responded with a yes and showed him the book. He finally believed what his uncle had told him. He urged her to pass him the book. She denied, saying that she had guarded it for very long, and the person who gave her the book said that the book could only be taken by his descendants or a destined person. So if he really wanted that book, he would have to first prove that he was his descendant or fated person and take her test. The test was that she would give him a potion that belonged to her, and if he survived after eating it, he was that person's descendant, but if he had died, then he was not. She said if he was willing, she would give him a potion. It would also aid him. Chuer insisted him not to eat what the flower would give him, but he told her not to worry, and that he would definitely succeed, although I didn't know if he was the descendant of the person the flower was talking about. However, if he would succeed and get the book, it could help him find the immortal herb that could cure Dong'er. He was sure that his uncle would not set up a trial he could not pass, and he must have predicted that beforehand. He assumed that was the reason he was sent there. He had a 50% chance he would succeed in it. Chuer kept on trying to stop him and said that the other half was death. The probability was low and he would die in vain if an unexpected mistake had happened. She could also tell him that the potion his uncle was trying to give him was also not simple, and his survival rate was not more than 50%. Teardrops started falling from his eye. It was the first time when Chuer saw him crying for someone else. She did not know what, but she was feeling very depressed. Maybe because those tears were not for her. She had warned him many times, but he was still going to do it. Yu Hao spoke to her, saying that she was right, and he had a really low chance of survival. He asked the flower if he could go back without taking the test. The flower answered with a yes, and said that as long as he would not take anything back from there, he did not need to be afraid of the poison out there while he goes back. He held Chuer's hand and suggested going from there. She started to think if he was really serious about what he was saying. She got fooled once before, but she was sure she won't be fooled that time. But as soon as he held her wrist, she fainted in his arms. He apologized to her, saying that if he did not do it, he knew she would stop him for sure, but Donger was the only one left for him. He said he would see her again after the test was finished. Meanwhile, Daydream Brother appeared and called him stupid. He asked if he was also trying to stop him. The Daydream Brother was not there to stop him. He was there because Yu Hao was his banger. He got to know from him that his body was already fused with the life of gold, and consuming any potion would not kill him. He also got to know that if the potion was better, if it was lethal. The Daydream Brother got the silk from it, as its greatest ability was to neutralize all kind of poison. If he would use it, he could have kept the poison away with its scent alone. Yu Hao was regretting that why he didn't know that before, and was thinking how would Chuer feel if she would know that after waking up. He said to the flower to give him her potion, and he was willing to accept her test. He seemed to be the courageous one to the flower. She started to think what potion he should be given. He asked if that was not decided beforehand. She replied that she had lived for a very long time, so having a bad memory was normal. She had put the pink ashes on him to check his body conditions so she could give him a suitable potion. There was so much pressure on him that he could not dodge it. She then gave him a potion that had blue light coming out of it. He asked that how was he supposed to eat it. As soon as he had the poison, Chuer woke up and asked the flower what she had given to him, while pointing her sword towards the flower. She told her not to worry, and it was not something dangerous. She continued saying that she could give that poison to her too if she wanted. She warned the flower that she would destroy each and every part of her if anything happened to him, even if she had to sacrifice her own life.